Why would powerful rulers and religious leaders try to erase the voice of one man? What truth did Averroes uncover that was considered so dangerous? It had to be silenced. Centuries ago, in Muslim Spain, Averroes, also known as Ibn Rushd, dared to ask questions that still shake our world today. In this video, we'll uncover 10 timeless lessons from Averroes. The power of independent thinking even when society disagrees. How knowledge, philosophy, and faith can coexist instead of collide. And why his ideas about justice and reason may be more urgent today than ever. Before we dive in, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like your ideas, or even your questions, were too uncomfortable for others to accept? If so, you're about to discover why Averroes might be the mentor you never knew you had. Let's step into Averroes' world for a moment. 12th century Spain, a place where cultures, religions, and philosophies collided. And right in the middle of it all, Averroes dared to bridge worlds that most thought were incompatible. Lesson 1. Think beyond the boundaries. Imagine living in a time when questioning tradition could cost you everything, your reputation, your career, even your life. Yet Averroes believed that blind faith without reason was fragile. He argued that the human mind was a gift, and to not use it, to not question, explore, and think, was almost an insult to the Creator. For him, true faith wasn't about shutting down questions, but about using reason to deepen belief. When everyone else said, "Do not ask," Averroes asked anyway. And that courage to think beyond boundaries is exactly what allowed his work to survive centuries of suppression. Lesson 2. Harmony between faith and knowledge. One of Averroes' boldest ideas was that philosophy and religion aren't enemies. They were two languages telling the same truth. He studied Aristotle not to replace faith, but to enrich it. To him, science, philosophy, and theology were different tools pointing toward the same reality. Think about how revolutionary that was. In a world where science is often seen as clashing with spirituality, Averroes offered a bridge. Knowledge doesn't destroy faith, it strengthens it. So here is the question for you. What if the conflict between belief and reason is a false one, created only because we're afraid of asking deeper questions? Lesson 3. Justice and the power of truth. Averroes also believed that justice wasn't just about laws, it was about truth itself. A society built on fear and ignorance cannot be just. He warned that silencing ideas only weakens society in the long run. And history proved him right. Though his books were banned and even burned, his ideas survived, traveling from Spain to the rest of Europe, planting seeds for the Renaissance. The irony? The very wisdom that rulers tried to bury ended up shaping the future they could never control. And here's the lesson for us. Truth doesn't vanish when suppressed. It grows stronger, waiting for the right moment to re-emerge. Lesson 4. Education is a civic duty picture. Cordoba's libraries, rows of manuscripts, scholars arguing gently over ideas, students copying pages by lamplight. Averroes didn't see learning as a private luxury. He saw it as a public service. He wrote, taught, clarified, and passed knowledge forward so others could climb higher than he did. A society that hoards knowledge shrinks. A society that shares it expands. Averroes chose expansion, teaching medicine, law, and philosophy not to impress but to empower. What would change in your life if you treated learning as a responsibility, not an ornament? Lesson 5. Courage. When the wind turns against you. There came a time when the same halls that once welcomed Averroes turned their backs. His books were condemned. He was pushed into silence and distance from power. It would have been easy to grow bitter or to stop writing altogether. He didn't. Conviction that outlasts applause is the only kind that changes history. Averroes kept working in the shadows, trusting that truth doesn't need a stage to survive. If approval vanished tomorrow, would your principles stay the same? Lesson 6. Dialogue over dogma. Averroes lived where worlds touched, Muslim, Christian, and Jewish. He learned early that disagreement is not a threat. It's a sharpening stone. He argued carefully, listened closely, and answered critics with reasons, not insults. Shouting proves volume, not truth. Dialogue does the harder work, finding where the light actually is. What conversation, one you avoided, might move you closer to clarity if you entered it with curiosity instead of combat? Lesson 7. Head and heart, not head or heart. As a physician and philosopher, Averroes saw how a restless mind can disturb the body and how a wounded spirit can blur judgment. He warned against extremes, cold logic with no compassion or raw emotion with no reasoning. Wisdom is the duet, not the solo. Imagine your toughest decision balanced by both, what you know and what you feel, each testing and refining the other. What would that change? Lesson 8. Wisdom has no passport. Ever wonder how a scholar in medieval Spain shaped debates in Paris centuries later? Because wisdom travels. Averroes' commentaries crossed languages and borders, earning him a simple title in Latin Europe, the commentator. Not because he repeated, but because he revealed. Truth is bigger than tribes. When we let ideas flow across faiths, cultures, and eras, everyone's horizon grows. What great idea are you sitting on that someone across the world might need? Lesson 9. Question power, without hating it. Averroes served as a judge. He respected law, but only as long as it served justice. He believed real authority shines when it's accountable to truth. That's a narrow road. Challenge what's wrong without despising the whole. Rebellion is easy. Reform is hard. Ask the sharper question, how can this be truer, fairer, and more humane? That's how integrity outlasts outrage. Lesson 10. Fire cannot burn an idea. They burn the pages. The words left the city, but the ideas, they slipped through the smoke and kept walking, translated, debated, refined, remembered. That is Averroes' quiet triumph. Build what fire cannot touch, character, clarity, and contributions that outlive you. If everything you owned vanished, what remains that still multiplies? 10 lessons, one through line. Courage in the service of truth. Averroes didn't live an easy story, he lived a durable one. So, what do Averroes' 10 lessons leave us with? Let's breathe them in one last time. Seek truth fearlessly. Bridge faith and reason, instead of tearing them apart. Respect tradition, but never lock yourself inside it. Teach and share knowledge. It's a responsibility, not a trophy. Stand firm when applause turns into silence. Choose dialogue over dogma. Let your head and heart work together, not against each other. Remember, wisdom has no passport. It belongs to all humanity. Question power, but reform it with integrity. And finally, live for what fire cannot burn, ideas that outlast you. These aren't dusty lessons trapped in the 12th century. They're invitations, for me, for you, for anyone alive right now. Averroes reminds us that courage and clarity are not luxuries. They are survival skills for every age. Which of these 10 lessons is already whispering to you? Which one do you need to live tomorrow? Not someday, but tomorrow. Thank you for traveling through the mind of Averroes with me. If this journey stirred something in you, share it, because wisdom only multiplies when it's given away. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and above all, keep your fire alive.